Greetings everyone, Lucard here. Today I'm going to talk about Father's Day Frights. Today we're going to talk about my top 10 Father's Day horror films. First up we have from 1979, The Amityville Horror. Everybody pretty much knows the story of the Amityville Horror. It's about the Lutz family. They move into a new house in Amityville, New York, and the house is haunted. Now the father figure is George Lutz, played by James Brolin, and he kind of slowly descends into madness as the house kind of messes with him. Yeah, it's a fantastic flick. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Alright, second movie we're going to talk about today is 1984's Firestarter, based on a book by Stephen King. This movie stars Drew Barrymore as Charlie and David Keith as her father, Andy McGee. So the story is a couple get experimented on with hallucinogenic drugs, and years later, they have a child, and she develops pyrokinesis, where she can set things on fire with her mind. Basically, the government wants the kid to use as a weapon, and so she gets abducted, and the dad goes and rescues her, and basically the rest of the movie is them evading all the crazy people that want her. And basically the reason I really like this one for Father's Day is he really protects Charlie the whole movie, and he's a good dad. All right, the next Father's Day movie we're going to talk about today, It's Alive, from 1974. Basically this movie is about a deformed creature child that is born, and the tale of its father kind of coming to terms with it, I guess is the best way to explain it. At first, the father is Frank Davis, played by John P. Ryan. He, at first, is not receptive to this child. The child is born, basically, and starts murdering. He murders the doctors, the nurse, the whole deal, and it becomes this little creature, kind of goes around killing everybody all around. And so, the dad at first is like, hey, this is not my kid. I'm going to come help you hunt this thing. And anyway, it's kind of the story of him kind of accepting that this is his child and whatnot. It's a weird little flick. It is enjoyable. It's definitely worth a watch. So check it out. Next movie we're going to talk about is Pet Sematary from 1989. That's right, I'm talking about the original, baby. So the story for this one is the Creed family moves to Maine after the patriarch is offered a job. He's a physician, I believe. He befriends the neighbor, and the neighbor takes him to this pet cemetery, is what they call it. And that's where everybody in town buries their pets. Funny enough, what happens? Their cat gets run over in the street on the highway. So he decides to go bury the cat at the pet cemetery. So he does this, and the cat comes back to life, but it comes back changed. It's a bit more vicious. It's just kind of evil eyes, and kind of creepy. So anyway, sometime later, their little boy, who's about, I think, 2, maybe even younger, I don't even know, runs out into the highway and gets run over by a big semi-truck. So what does the dad ultimately do? He decides to go bury the son at the pet cemetery. Brought the cat back. Maybe it'll bring the kid back. perhaps? Alright. I think you've all seen Pet Sematary. I think you know how it goes. But the dad is Louis Creed, played by Dale Mitkiff. And he does a really good job in this movie. Um, Another classic, another Stephen King classic, by the way. So check it out if you haven't. My next recommendation is The Last House on the Left from 1972. The story is about two teenage girls on their way to a concert, and they get abducted by a gang of murderers. Now you're asking me, how does this have anything to do with Father's Day? Well, I'm going to give a spoiler here because I kind of have to. So the murderers go to this house, which ends up being the house of one of the girls that they murdered. And the girl's parents decide to take revenge on this murderous group. So the dad and the mom, they both start attacking the group, and the dad is fantastic at the very end of this movie with the chainsaw. And I'm not going to give anything else away. I kind of gave it all away anyway. However, another classic, directed by Wes Craven. The dad's name is Dr. John Collinwood, and he's played by Richard Towers. So now I'm going to talk about my favorite Father's Day horror flicks. Starting off with The Devil's Rejects from 2005. Devil Rejects is directed by metal superstar Rob Zombie. And the father figure in this one is Captain Spaulding, aka Cutter, played by the legendary Sid Haig. The movie basically is the second part of the Firefly trilogy. Basically, it is the Firefly family. Say that 10 times fast. It's about the Firefly family, and they're on the run from the Texas Rangers and the state troopers and whatnot, because they have murdered a bunch of people, and they have been found out. So basically, this movie is about them on the run, away from all of this. So in the first movie, they were complete antagonists, and now in this movie, it kind of flips, and they're the protagonist. Kinda. I kind of like the twist here, in that the good guys are really bad guys, but you're following them and it's their story. And all the performances are great. This is, I think, easily Rob Zombie's best movie. So Captain Spaulding is the father figure here. He is the father of Baby Firefly, aka Vera Ellen, played by Sherry Moon Zombie. And he is a kind of a vile, vulgar, murderous clown, but he does have lots of love for his messed up, murderous family. And fun fact, Captain Spaulding was actually named after a character in the Marx Brothers film Animal Crackers. Alright, my next favorite is The Mist from 2007. Another Stephen King flick. I didn't realize I had so many Stephen King Father's Day films on here, but hey, you know, what you gonna do? Alright, so The Mist is about a dad and his son getting trapped inside of a supermarket during a cataclysmic event. All of a sudden this mist comes out of nowhere, and the mist has a bunch of Lovecraftian type creatures in it, and you can't see in it, and you can't, like, there's nowhere to go. Like, you're just wherever you are, you're trapped. So he gets trapped inside of a supermarket along with his son and a bunch of other people, and it's basically the tale of their survival and how they get out of it. Now, of course, this film is famous for its ending, which I will not give away in case you haven't seen it, but the ending really makes this movie, like, I was blown away when I saw it. It's so good. And if you can, if you have the DVD or Blu-ray with the black and white version of the movie, highly recommend watching it in black and white. It makes everything scarier and everything much better. I loved it. I will never watch it in color ever again. The dad's name is David Drayton, and he's played by Thomas Jane. Next, we're going to talk about The Stepfather from 1987. The dad is Jerry Blake, played by Terry O'Quinn, and this movie is really, it's Terry O'Quinn's baby. He is so good in this movie. I mean, he's so charismatic, and so he makes the movie. Absolutely 100%. Anybody else played him, it would not have worked. He's perfect in this movie. It's a slasher flick. It's based on a guy who changes identities, and he gets into these families and he murders them. He's so creepy in this movie. The stepdaughter, of course, starts realizing, hey, something's not quite right with this guy, blah blah blah. So it kind of sets him off onto his murderous rampage yet again. There have been 2 sequels and a remake. Part 2 is pretty decent because Terry O'Quinn returns. However, Part 3 is a completely separate thing, and it's still a different character, and it's not even worth your time. As well as the remake is also not worth your time. Most remakes are not. Just my opinion. And the #1 Father's Day film that I recommend for all you horror fans out there is 2001's Frailty, directed by Bill Paxton. And the dad's name is Meeks, and he's played by Bill Paxton. The story is about these 2 young boys and their father. Their father believes he has been given a mission by God to eradicate the demons that have disguised themselves as human beings. So the movie is basically about one of the kids, there's 2 kids. One of the kids believes the daddy, and he's all for it, and he's willing to help, and all this other stuff. And the other kid thinks his dad is insane, and thinks his dad is just this crazy murderer. And when I first saw this movie, this is one of those movies I give a 5 out of 5 or a 10 out of 10, however you want to rank it. This movie is so good. And some folks really have never even heard of this movie, and it's a real shame because it's so effective as a horror film, as a drama film. It works on so many levels. And Bill Paxton and the 2 kids are fantastic in this movie. I mean, they're just incredible. I cannot tout this movie enough. Go out of your way to see this movie, Frailty. You will love it. It's even if you don't like the story, you'll appreciate for what it is. It's so good that I cannot recommend it enough. So these are my Father's Day movies that I recommend for you. I hope all you guys have a wonderful Father's Day. Anyway, stay spooky, and I'll see you next time.